Spring, it is here, and so is the sneezing, the itchy eyes, and the congestion. If you have allergies, you know you are miserable, and you are not alone for sure. Dr. Evelyn Lomasney with Cone Health Allergy and Asthma Center of North Carolina, here to share expert advice on easing those symptoms and tackling spring allergies. All right, let's just start. How can someone tell if their symptoms are actually from allergies versus a cold or like COVID?
Yeah, that's a good question because we've had a really late cold flu season, so things are still circulating. In general, I tell my allergy patients that allergies do not cause fevers. So if you have a fever, I would, think more flu, COVID, some of the viruses that are going around.
Okay, the next question people ask when they figure out it is allergies, okay, if it is that, how long do these symptoms last? Is it all season long? Is it part of the season?
Usually why the pollen count is high. So we see tree pollen in the early spring, which is right now. Grass pollen tends to come out in the late spring, and then fall is our weed pollen season. So if you are an unlucky person and allergic to all three, you're looking at symptoms from kind of mid-March to October. So it really depends on what you're positive to. And then in general, I say about 4 to 6 weeks of high pollen days for each of those.
4 to 6 weeks of miserableness. Okay, got it. And that's only, and that's only if you're allergic to one of them versus all three of them. Okay, got it.
Yes.
So what should we know about taking the over-the-counter antihistamines for allergies? Like, for example, how long does it take for it to work and for us to know, okay, this is what I should be taking?
So they give pretty immediate relief. So I would say if you're having symptoms and you think it's allergies, taking an over-the-counter antihistamine, you should know within a day or two if it's helping. Most of the time I hear that they help, but they're not enough. And then you can add something like a over-the-counter nasal steroid or nose sprays can really help as well, in addition to the antihistamine. I would say how you use it depends on how severe your symptoms are. So if they're mild and you don't have symptoms every day, take it as needed. For my rule of thumb, though, is if you're taking it more than 50% of the time, just go ahead and take it daily through the season, and you'll probably feel a whole lot better that way.
Yeah, I wish it didn't make me feel so kind of foggy.
Right. So I would say if you have those foggy, the sleepiness that comes from the antihistamines, try different ones because some people tend to tolerate one versus another. And so don't write them all off. They really are very different, but they'll all work for allergies.
Okay. Are there home remedies that can also help ease our symptoms, or maybe some common mistakes that we are making that we should stop doing?
And unfortunately, I don't know of a ton of great home remedies. I know a big myth is the local honey. It tastes delicious and it might be great in a tea, but it really doesn't help allergies because that pollen is from the bees, and that's not the pollen that you become allergic to. We become allergic to the wind pollinated plants, so that when you step outside, you might not be able to see the pollen, but you're going to feel it.
Okay, so let's go back to then the maybe common mistakes people should avoid.
A big one I feel like is people don't underestimate how much pollen is on their clothes and their hair and their skin, and really showering or changing clothes after being outside can be very helpful. Another big mistake, especially if you have eye symptoms, don't rub your eyes, because you're just rubbing that pollen in your eyes. So get like a cold compress or a paper towel and wipe the eyes. I think one of the big things I see is people don't reduce their pollen exposure in a lot of non-medicine ways that we can do, and that can be really helpful.
So how do we reduce our pollen exposure?
Sure. So we call them avoidance measures. One of the big ones is keep your windows closed. It might be nice and breezy, but those windy days tend to be the biggest pollen days. And again, if you're going to be outside, shower, change your clothes when you come inside to get rid of that pollen. Early morning tends to be the highest pollen count. So if you have to go mow the grass, don't do it early morning and on a windy day.
Okay, and that's what I'm thinking to myself. I walk the dog every single morning, and it's early in the morning. And that's probably just setting me up for the rest of the day to not feel fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We've got more questions and answers coming up on allergies in just a few minutes.